Okay, so HIMSS, a global not-for-profit organisation, works throughout the world. That's our mission: enabling better health through information technology. Why do we have such a mission? Well, one of the reasons is this, and I sort of use this slide a lot. You may have seen it before. I don't know how accurate it is, but it sort of grabs your attention, doesn't it? That medicine and healthcare kills people unnecessarily. 9.5% of the number of annual deaths in the US, 8,000 of those are drug errors. Very similar in the UK, 40,000 people a year. 7% of the total number of annual deaths, 900 of those are from drug errors. So, you know, we're in a space here where potentially we can only do good. And dependent on where I am and who I'm speaking to, I ask what it's like for you. And it's a cultural thing, sometimes it's an IT thing, it can often be a professional thing, but this type of thing is grossly underreported, as you can imagine. And in some countries, it's pushed under the carpet completely. I met this guy, that's not his photograph, but that's his name. He was a vascular surgeon in the north of England, and he said he wanted to get some technology that made it easy for him to do the right thing and difficult for him to do the wrong thing. How easy would it be to pick up the wrong container? And some of those containers are local applications, some are disinfectants, some of them you can swallow. It's an old photograph, I agree. Things have got a lot better since bottles look like this. But the clue is over on my side. You can see the barcode quite clearly on the side of the bottle. Machine readable. Another easy mistake to make, once again, very old photograph, but one of those is a muscle relaxant and those are antihistamine. You wouldn't want to mix them up. You can probably tell from my accent, I come from the north of England. This was in my local paper a couple of years ago. It's not something that happens to other people, it happens very close to home as well. And the only difference between a drug and a poison is the dose. So, just wanted to slides before we have a look at the MRAM itself. That just shows the difference between two wards, the type of error that was reduced because of a closed loop system. And I genuinely didn't know that I was coming here today to speak to an audience that was predominantly from pharmacy. But it will be helpful because I'll spend a little bit more time talking about this and how the MRAM interprets it. Same for blood. Enormous difference it makes when we're using machine readable technology to accurately identify blood products. So let's have a look at the acute MRAM. Just raise your hand if you've heard of the MRAM. Okay, only a few people. So when Anne earlier was talking about stage 7, she was actually talking about stage 7 of the MRAM. And the MRAM is the Electronic Medical Record Adoption Model. And we've measured probably the best part of 20,000 hospitals worldwide. So the database is massive. So if you want to know where best practice is or where to go to have a look at somebody using the same clinical system as yourselves, similar sized hospital, doing the same things, we can signpost you to that hospital and you can go and see what they're doing. The vast majority of those organisations have completed the MRAM and they have a score. The MRAM's been around for a while, and that's why we have such a large data set. It was actually established in 2005. And over the last 10, 11 years, we've made small changes, but some significant changes were made on the 1st of January. We gave everybody a couple of years' notice that we were making the changes, both from industry, providers, and we made changes in several areas. But we felt that we needed a model that actually kept up with healthcare IT in 2018, and clearly a model that was developed in 2005 wasn't doing that. So we were under some pressure to make the changes. We made changes in 3 areas. We introduced some new standards, and as you can imagine, those new standards were around cybersecurity, they were around disaster recovery and business continuity, recognising that healthcare IT is the actual lifeblood of any organisation delivering healthcare today. We moved some of the elements from the higher stages excuse me, into the lower stages. A great example of that is PACS, Picture Archiving Communication Systems. PACS used to be in stage 5, PACS is now in stage 1. It's in stage 1 because everybody's got PACS. In 2005, clearly, everybody didn't. And we've finally increased some areas of compliance. So the previous standards, they wanted to have seen things in one clinical area. We now require to see things in 50% of inpatient areas, or 90% of inpatient areas for some of the standards. So I'm going to take you through the standards, and it will be an audience-sensitive run-through, so I'll try and spend a little bit more time on some of the pharmacy steps, but equally I think it's important to understand how the whole lot fits together. The MRAM is an evidence-based model, so it's recognised how hospitals have deployed electronic medical records, and as such the 7 stages are built up with that in mind. That's the current model. You can have a quick look at that, and maybe you can see it, and maybe have a bit of a guess about where your hospital might be on that model. Clearly, at stage 0, hospitals don't have ancillary systems, probably have nothing that looks like an electronic medical record. Towards stage 7, the hospital is virtually paperless. If you don't know what a paper hospital looks like, then give me a call and I can direct you to one. So I'm going to go through each of the stages. I'm going to have a look at what that stage requires. I'll then tell you about the process of completing a survey and what happens when you receive an MRAM score. So at stage 1, we require those 4 main diagnostic systems to be in place. But we also want to know what you're doing with those photographs and images that doctors take on digital cameras, take on their mobile phones. Because they're important and they should be forming part of the patient's record. So ideally, those non-DICOM images, as we call them, will be sat on a server and being accessed across the hospital network. At stage 2, we're looking for something that appears to be a common clinical data repository. The gold standard is that you have all your clinical data in the same place, or indeed something that looks like it's all in the same place. So if your data is indeed in different systems, and you've got some sort of a viewer that sits over the top and creates the illusion of things being together, then that's pretty good. Why do we want things to be the same place? Well, all those clever alerts and warnings that require an algorithm, they work much better when the data is in one database, rather than having to go to half a dozen different databases in order to create that alert or warning. What's an alert or warning? It might let a prescriber know that a patient is allergic to a certain drug. It might offer a newly qualified doctor an order set to help diagnose acute myocardial infarction. It might highlight some national best practice to ensure that someone maintains the appropriate care pathway. We have some security questions. You can read them on the screen. I'm not going to particularly go through them, but we want to know that you've got policies in place and those policies are being reviewed and, if necessary, updated on a regular basis. The gold standard is 12 months. I must admit, most hospitals in the UK are pretty good at this. The Information Governance Toolkit, I'm not quite sure what it's called now, but was a really good start, I think, to make sure that we tick some of these boxes. So stage 3 is about care documentation being online, making sure that the doctors and the nurses are documented in an electronic system rather than on paper. And Philippa gave me a really good plug around the electronic. An electronic system contains data fields that do things. Do things, that be a calculation, simple calculation, such as calculating the BMI. More sophisticated calculation might be helping a doctor with a weight-based dosing regimen. You have to have data fields that do things. Data fields that are either pictures or static are not much better than paper. So doctors, nurses, allied health professionals documented in an electronic system. Vital signs being captured and documented electronically. We're not bothered that we go straight from the thermometer straight into the EMR. If you do that, fantastic. We don't want to see paper charts or transcription. And we want to see that at stage 3 across 50% of the inpatient areas. And also it to be live in the emergency room or the accident emergency department. To understand your approach to role-based access controls, to ensure that people have the right level of access commensurate with their professional responsibilities is clearly very important. Any clues? Genuine prescription that I photographed in the hospital, who were actually trying to convince me of the need to maintain paper record. And I picked the bit of paper up and I took it to the nurse and I said, "What does that say?" They hadn't got a clue. Stage 4, computerized order entry. This is the requesting typically of tests to the imaging department, to the pharmacy, to the laboratory, blood tests, X-ray examinations, etc. We want to see that capability across 50% of the inpatient areas, but also live in the ED. And clinical documentation now within nursing to go up to 90%. And if there's an opportunity to access national or regional databases, we'd like to know how you're doing it. And at stage 4, we introduce the need to have a well thought out business continuity plan. The gold standard is to have a protected PC or a number of protected PCs in each clinical area that contains subset of the electronic record or indeed all of it prior to discharge. And equally, hospitals need intrusion or intruder detection systems. So can the electronic medical record, can the network detect potential intruders. And that could be someone trying to log on several times, but it could be someone trying to access a record that there's no requirement to access. Stage 5 relates to doctor documentation. Doctors compiling their initial assessments, progress notes, discharge notes electronically. You see down at the bottom, we're now looking for intruder prevention rather than intruder detection, and some timeliness monitoring on the completion of nursing tasks. We recognise that when nursing tasks, when medicines are either not given, given late, that has a detrimental effect on the health and well-being of the inpatient. Okay, so at stage 6 is the first time that the model introduces verification at the point of care using technology. And in essence, we require the nurse to identify themselves, the nurse to identify the patient, and the nurse to identify the medicine. Often that is by reading a barcode or a QR code, or it could be some other type of technology. We are not prescriptive around what sort of technology is used. Well, the hospital has to do that for medicines, for blood, and for human milk, if the milk is being held in a communal store. If the milk is in individual fridges in single occupancy rooms, then that's fine. But if milk is being stored communally, we have to be treating milk the same way as we do blood and medicines. What the standard really wants to see is technology establishing or verifying 5 rights before the nurse administers the medicine. And we know that when medicines are packed in unit dose, that's much easier. That's not the common system in the UK at the moment, but I'm more than happy to talk about what HIMSS finds acceptable in terms of closed loop in this country. At stage 6, several examples of clinical decision support. So is the system helping the doctor with the INR result before prescribing an anticoagulant? Is the system helping the doctor with renal efficiency prior to prescribing a drug that may affect it? And this can be done in several ways. It's often a simple pop-up that says, go and look, or even better, it's a big pop-up that says, this is the latest INR results. And even better, if it's a critical drug, it might provide a hard stop. It might say to the doctor, you can't prescribe this because of A, B, and C. And we see several examples of very well thought out, well managed hard stops. An example of a machine readable unit dose strip of medicines with a QR code in the middle. So at stage 7, providing we've got everything in place through stages 0 to 6, it's really looking at a hospital that is virtually paperless, that is using advanced analytics. The system is in widespread use. People talk well of it and find the system actually contributes to the overall well management of the hospital. Just wanted to bits and pieces at the end. So 90% coverage of documentation of CPOE and a good privacy and security program in place. 1 or 2 bits at the bottom about what the future might hold in terms of further requirements. So one fills in a survey, goes through a QA process, gets a score, and receives a short gap analysis. The short gap analysis demonstrates distance from target, and often the target is stage 6, so the short gap report will demonstrate what the hospital has to do in order to get to stage 6. And that's a confidential process, so nothing's published other than the stage 6 and stage 7 hospitals. So hospitals can complete a survey and quietly work their way, trying to improve the score until they get to stage 6. Stage 6 requires an on-site validation, which is often done by a single HIMSS inspector, and that's a typical day for an on-site validation. We spend time in the morning understanding governance and policy, disaster recovery, that type of thing, and in the afternoon we actually have a walk around the hospital, visit some of these clinical areas and look at the processes I've just been talking about. So I've got a few slides just to finish with benefit and value, because I think it's important that we recognise the benefit and the value of actually doing this. So first of all, there's some general value and benefits that one would associate with using EMR technology, and there's probably about 50 of these. I've just picked a few out to give you a flavour. Secondly, the value and benefit of measuring and benchmarking, being able to compare yourself with others, identify benchmarking partners, and work together in order to increase productivity and improve service delivery, but also get that third party attestation. So it's okay thinking yourselves to be good, but when someone else comes along completely independent and does that for you, it means so much more. And then finally, some value and benefits of being a stage 6, stage 7 organisation. It costs a small amount of money to go through this process, so it's important that organisations get some things in return. And these apply across Europe, not specifically to England. You may decide some of these are not appropriate for England, but the slide is for a European audience. Certainly I think the one about being able to withstand political and legal challenge is very important, especially when you've been through an independent process. Just showing where our stage 6, stage 7 hospitals are in Europe. We have 3 stage 6 hospitals in the UK: Kingston, Cambridge, and where's the other one?
Oxford.
No,
St George's.
St George's. Thank you. Who said that? Cheers. Yeah, and as we pointed out when Anne was speaking, we revalidated Cambridge only a couple of weeks ago. So the validation lasts for 3 years, and then we go through the process again. There's just some numbers there so you can see where the stage 6, stage 7 awardees are in Europe. Turkey's an interesting story with 166 stage 6 hospitals. Anybody wanting to hear more about the Turkish story, catch me at lunchtime, at coffee time. And finally, I think both in hospitals who go through this process and are successful, countries that go through it, I see these 3 enablers time after time after time. Hospitals who are willing to invest, but invest in the right thing. There's always money, but there's a lot of evidence to suggest that the money is being spent on the wrong thing and in an ad hoc manner. Clinical engagement at all levels and leadership at all levels, from within the hospital, the region, the ministry, etc. This was meaningful use that was introduced in 2010, 2011 in the US, where the US government incentivised hospitals to use technology. And you can see what happened to it when that incentivisation took place. Final slide, the MRAM is only one of our maturity models. Certainly the DIAM and the infram are very recent, but the continuity of care maturity model is the assessment of the entire health economy. So it examines the use of electronic medical records and the degree of integration across an STP, for example. Thank you very much.